Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. You are joining me for the round one review. We have made it. We have got teams locked in and we get to talk about trading. No more picks or anything like that. This is a good spot to be in. As you can see, my round score and rank is on the season. We've got a new refreshed dashboard this year. Let's go. So what I scored a 21.16, which put me 48,500 overall out of 165,000 teams. Is that more or less than last year? I don't know. I'm sure that's probably still goes up a little bit more. So what, this is like the top 33%. It's lost the percentages, I think. Is that right? Oh, don't know, top 29% over here. All right, I see it. It's all right. Look, if you've had a look at the best teams of the week, there's a lot of rubbish in there. And some people have planned for buys and some people haven't, and all that type of stuff. So I am not worrying about ranks. We will get, I think, our first really good gauge as we come out of like round 6, 7. That's when you'll actually get a good feel for where everyone is at. And of course, like many others, I lost rookie roulette pretty badly this week. I lost 120 points on field, so it could have been better, but I'm sure that's also true of many others. If you hit all of your rookies, then well done. Now, this is going to be focused on the trades and not reviewing everything this week. So we're going to talk strategy and trades. If you want to get my thoughts on all the players that I think are relevant, then check out my round one review video where I go through each of the games and talk about the players, game styles, things I'm looking for, all that type of stuff. All right, in terms of SuperCoach trades for this week. Well, actually, firstly, let's talk through how my team ended up, and we might actually swap this over to light mode as we go into trades as well. There's some bugs to work out on that front, which makes going into light mode a little bit better. I've not. Anyway, okay, so teams changes that happened last minute that you would have seen probably. So, firstly, Carroll came in just before the game on, was it Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, the first game of the round. And the reason why wasn't really sure who to put in that slot, whether it's like Sharp or like put in an extra forward and have it be Lazaro or someone else. And so decided on Carroll, mainly because the role was there, and if Walsh's back played up, his job security should be okay. But, CBA mid. And also just because him being on bye this week actually like opens up loopholes, so I don't have to worry about looping McKercher, Robert Sanders. I can play all of them, like see their scores and play all of them. So I decided to go him. If he needed to be traded, then so be it. But at least I could use him for a loophole this week. So that little bit of extra utility got him over the line, which I think was fortunate. He looked pretty good in that role, and I'm happy with that. Other last minute changes. I think there was only one other big one. No, yeah, one other big one. And that was LDU down to green to free up a little bit of extra cash so I could go Gibcus up to Massimo in one trade if I wanted to. Now, what I realized as soon as I did it was that it should have been Bont down to green, not LDU, and taking the extra Bont money as well. But boys in Discord are big on Bont, and I just didn't even see it as an option. So that was silly. There was a third move as well. I got Yo back in the side. Let's go. Wanted him all preseason. So I traded Wines down to Yo. And the reason why is looking at my defense of Reed, Hoare, Howes, and Gibcus. None of the rookie defenders really went well this week as replacement options, including like Caulfield, Pink, Dean. So I'm looking at this going, I don't want to run a fourth defender rookie. I want to run 3 or 2. And instead, I'd like to be able to free up room to get like a Dempsey or a Berry or a Sharp, who I don't have in the side, and all look like they'll be good rookies. So I brought in Yo so I could trade out Gibcus this week, move Yo back, and then put in a rookie elsewhere. Do I think Wines probably ends up scoring more? Like I thought so, yeah, like probably. But given that bringing Yo in would let me fix my structure, I decided to do that move. If I'd been able to move Dacos in there, sure, but he was already locked out. So yeah, I kind of made 3 last minute moves, which was Lazaro down to Carroll to free up cash and to have the loophole utility this week. LDU down to green to once again free up a little bit of cash so I could get Gibcus up to Massimo, and then Wines to Yo to help with the structure this week. And they all happened on different days, so it wasn't like one coherent trading session. It was adjusting as the round occurred. And then, the only mistake was it should have been Bont down to LDU. So I'm still kicking myself about that. I really would love the extra 100k, and we'll talk about why in a second. So in terms of philosophy for trading this week and what you're thinking about. Now, normally at this time, or and at least in years gone past, I think it's different now. You try and not do any trades this week, and that is because you've only seen one game. We have a full extra game until prices rise and change. So even if you had an injury, you might hold them just because you get an extra week of information before you do any trading. This year is obviously different because we have a bunch of teams, 8 of them, or actually 6 of them because 2 are on bye, that are going to have price raises this week. So if you want to jump on them, you have to go now. Introduces risk because the players that you're jumping off, you've only seen 1 week of, and we know that 1 week of sample size isn't always good. Just look at what happened with Grundy and Gorn over the last 2 weeks. If that had been reversed, then everyone would have been starting Gorn. Lots of people would have been fading Grundy, and then this week they would be trying to get him in. But instead, it's the other way around. So yeah, making decisions off one game of sample size, especially where they have the role that you expect, is always tricky. It could just be an off game. It could be that they were sick and you don't hear about it in the media. It could be that it was just a poor matchup. So it does make it tricky. But at the same time, if we want to jump on some of these guys that look like they're rising in price and going to do quickly, we're going to have to make those calls this week. That's a tough one. So then in terms of, what's more important to fix up, rookies, premiums, all that type of stuff, for me, playing the value game, thinking of fantasy, and that's what I've been trying to bring more of this year to my SuperCoach side. It is, how do I maximize cash generation, lots of it quickly? How do I get that value injected into my side, which I can then convert into points to score high across the year? I've got some space to catch up. So yeah, we want to make sure we've got the right rookies because it's going to make more cash than anyone else, and we want to make sure we've got the right value players on field. And there are a few value players that did really well this week, and there are some that didn't do so well. But some of the ones that did well, Jordan, Fife, Billings, and the forward line, I think all 3 of those are great targets to have. In the midfield, you had Bonner, who's an interesting option, but not on the bubble this week. And then in defense, you had Massimo, once again, interesting option, but not on the bubble this week. So you can probably wait on Fife, even though he's got a good matchup this week against North. Fife, Bonner, and Massimo. But you do need to go this week on Jordan or Billings if you're interested in them. Makes it tricky because a lot of people's worst forward, I think, is going to be Fisher. So you could jump off Fisher and split him into those 2, and I think that might be worthwhile. But we could see a bounce back game from Fisher this week, and I don't doubt that is possible. Other players in the midfield or defense, premiums that you should be going after. I think if you miss a Sheasel, he's both value and going to score well. Something like that makes a lot of sense. You could consider someone like Steele, although I don't know if he's necessarily absolutely gunned it. But I don't think there's any of these that really become must-haves. Even Tom Green, who's going to go up a lot of money, is he a must-have? He'll come down later at some point. I don't think I'd be jumping on him now 1 game before he's bye. Hasn't particularly got great scoring history against West Coast anyway. So even if he scores a 122, which is projected, he only goes up 30k. I'd be waiting for these types of players off their bye. I think Heaney might be a different story just because he's got a lot of time still before he's bye. So, this has got him going up 70k and being a keeper, 91, 111, 124, which is realistic. I think against Essendon, Richmond, West Coast, that could be a lot better than these scores. Tricky. So yeah, Heaney's the one that you might need to go on. Flanders is, I think, one that I won't jump on for the same reason as Green. Plus, we've got these other mid-price options, Fife, Jordan, and Billings, I think are worth getting onto. In terms of rookies, must-have rookies, ones that you don't have that you probably should jump on. In terms of ones on the bubble, it's really Roberts, Sexton, and Howes, and they're the ones that you should absolutely have in your side. I think Cadman's definitely a consideration as well, given what he's priced at. And with another soft matchup this week against West Coast, presumably, could see a pretty decent price rise out of him. The other interesting one that popped up this week is Tom Berry. So forward for Gold Coast, he backed up a 62 in relatively low time on ground, 73 minutes with an 83 against Adelaide. 104 against Adelaide, moving his average up to 83. Now got a really low break even. If he just goes 50-50 in the next 2, he makes 100k, which is a good chunk of change. GWS might be a tough matchup. Bulldogs probably is okay based on what we've seen of them so far. So I think he's a consideration. In terms of like rookies that then aren't on the bubble this week that look like must-haves, I think McKercher. Sanders a little bit interesting just to see what happens with him. Reed looks probably good enough. And then Dempsey's probably the highest price one that I don't have on my side. Beyond that, wait another week on data for these ones. So interesting for me as well, all right? Like most of my rookies are okay now, apart from Gibcus, I got to go. Reed is injured, but we don't know how long. It could be quite short, like 1 or 2 weeks. I'm probably inclined to hold if it's less than 3. If it's more than that, I might look at trade options, but I don't really know who I want to trade him to. So yeah, like, it's tough. This is going to be a really tough week for trades. I said this on Twitter. I'm just trying to work through it out loud as we look at this. Like brand fresh new eyes on it. Did my round review. I'm like, oh, actually playing through these for trades now hard. All right, I'm just gonna like quickly review my team then top to bottom. I've gone through the picks and some of the rookies that adjustments I made, but like Dacos, Sheasel, I still see as keepers for sure. Young had the role that we wanted in the midfield, but played a poor game. I think he had like 11 clangers. For reference, Nick Martin, who also butchered it, had like 4. So this is particularly bad. 4 frees against. It's not going to be this bad every week. But playing the defensive side role. But yeah, I'm fine with Young. Williams played 3 quarters. The fourth, no bueno. Like, I think better games are ahead, so I'm fine holding him. Like, I could move off him at Massimo to 1 point if I really wanted to, but I think Massimo have to go big this week for that to be realistic. Massimo himself, people will be talking about. I think there's just as big a chance he goes like 50 or 60 this week that he has a good score. So I'm actually curious to watch him another week. I felt like a lot of ball fell into his lap in that game. Don't get me wrong, he played very well, and I miss him already as a Dons man. Love Massimo, but played up on the wing more so than in half back, which isn't necessarily conducive to high scoring. So it could be a flash in a pan against his old side rather than it being the norm. So yeah, happy to wait and see from Massimo another week before moving on him. Reed, as I mentioned in the player reviews video, like he was assessed for the PTs by like 5 to 7 minutes before halftime. They couldn't say if he was injured or not. They didn't know. So they were like looking at it over halftime. It sounds like the coaches took the decision out of their hands and just ruled him out for the second half of that game. He may only have had tightness. There may be no injury at all when they scan him this week. And he might be okay to play as soon as this week or next week, in which case you hold him. But if it's a proper hamstring and they're going to play it conservative, he might be 3 to 4, in which case you can trade. Horan Howes, I didn't get to watch this game, but the scores look all right for me, so hopefully this keeps up. I think Howes will have a very low break even, minus 86 this week, so he's going to start making some big money. What they've got a couple of 40s in here, he still makes 80k. He's going to make more than that though. But yep, he's good. And then yeah, Gibcus ACL done for the trade out. Do you have to trade him this week? Not particularly, but yeah, one that you probably do. I mean, as it stands right now, if you've got the Gibcus Reed Williams combo, you're probably fielding a donut. So getting one of these players out this week makes sense. Caulfield's probably the rookie that I'm most interested in next, but I once again didn't watch the game, so I don't know if he's done anything to hurt his job security. Scoring wasn't particularly good. Playing more of that small defender role rather than being involved in the rebounding half-back work, which hurts. In the midfield, yeah, I mean, the mids all did good in terms of my premium ones. Butters, maybe you expect a slightly better score given that they were beating up on West Coast, but whatever. Bont, yeah, it should have been LDU, went 121, whatever. And then LDU to Green netted me points, but then Green's got the bye, so it is what it is. The cash is handy though. And then Steele, good enough. I'm going to move in defense. This was okay. His time on ground was a little bit concerning, and how low the scoring was in that game in general, but I think it was just a function of being against Port, and this will improve going forward. Martin has the role that we wanted. It was the Nick Dacos halfback role. He just absolutely slaughtered the ball in the first half. And not to give excuse for some of his decision-making and disposal, but I think he was actually playing the way that Brad Scott had chalked it up on the board. I'm sure he hadn't chalked up disposal, turnover. But what I mean by that is they were looking for like this shorter chip mark game and trying to open up almost like picking through zones and stuff like that and having people lead up into these spots, but he was not getting any movement in front of the ball at all. And so what happens for a lot of other teams is when you get to that point where you're not getting much movement, there's not really a good option. You just bomb it long. Martin was still trying to aggressively pick off some of those kicks, maybe more than he should have. So I'm interested to see what happens with the adjustment here. Like, I'm curious. So he's going to be one of the most traded out players this week, along with Fisher, because a lot of people are going to need money to open up stuff to get to like Fifes, Jordans, Billings, Bonners, Massimos. And I can see people combining Martin and Fisher to turn them into cash and trade them into stuff. I kind of want to see them for another week, but I don't want to be stuck in a spot where we come next week and I need to make other trades. But I've still got Martin and Fisher that have been bums for a second week in a row. And a whole bunch of other people have moved them off and you had a week ahead. So that's what I'm weighing up for sure on the trade front. Do I back in the role and like that disposal efficiency won't continue, which I think is the case. And like there's learnings coming to that. It's his first game in that role. But yeah, not great. Sanders being subbed out, not good. Couple of clangers, but it looked like he got enough of the pill. So hopefully they just persist with him. It's harder to want to field him now, just given that he's the sub-vest risk. But given we are also going into best 18, I think you can kind of just take the punt on players like that have a high upside, but maybe the floor or something like a vest. It probably doesn't matter as much in these weeks. Roberts, once again, good role. Swans dominated that game with a lot of ball in their forward half. Pies did not do so well in those regards. So I think his scoring will be fine going forward. Expect, I think, these low 70s, mid 70s average, which will make lots of cash. Nurkic, great. If you don't have him, like high priority, must have rookie. The role is insane. He looked very good doing it. Was happy to run around and junk it up and get involved with chains and definitely wants to hold the ball. Clark is the concerning one. 13 no good and subbed out. So in terms of like the rookies that I can move on, he's the obvious trade out target apart from the injured ones in Gibkiss and Reed. I think there's a chance he actually still holds this week, but maybe he gets sub time or something. I don't know. But he's the one that I'm looking to move on that isn't Gibkiss to find another rookie option, especially if I can get like a Berry or something in this week. In the rucks, Gorn went crazy. Grundy was okay. Cherry went really well for those that have him. Kind of wish Grundy hadn't gone as big in the preseason so I could still have Cherry. Is what it is. Other rucks like Marshall, English all went fine as well. There's going to be some people saying like, do I need to get up to Gorn this week? Do I need to get out of Grundy this week? Because of what happened last week, it's actually not that bad. So Grundy's got a lower break even than Gorn. Gorn's still got an 89 break even. So you can wait a week on these trades even with the prices moving. It's not going to go against you too much. Gorn has the Hawks matchup, which is typically fairly restrictive for restrictive for rucks. It's what happens when you film these late. So I think you can probably wait on Gorn. You don't have to do that, especially if you've got other pressing issues. But if he goes big again this week, then obviously you might want to pony up the week after with the 162 and the rolling average. On the Swans, like on the Grundy side, like I think you can still beat this rolling average. You get another look at Cherry, and then if you need to move on, like by downgrading something like that, you can. You'll make a little bit of money out of Grundy, and then see you later. In the forwards, for me, so Heaney, obviously great. I don't think he's must-have, but a very good option if you've got other stuff that hasn't worked, or you can move him in. Break even of -12 just looks very nice. Again, and the Swans have got a soft fixture, so it should do well. Fisher, a bit like Martin, had the role, but didn't convert it into points. You look at Cheeseland, McKercher, and Fisher, right? Like, is the scoring distribution going to be like that every week, or is it going to balance up a bit at times? I think Fisher's going to be better than this, but obviously it's concerning. So, like, I could give him another week, or I could just move him on this week. I could see teams that have like Heaney, or like two of Heaney, Flanders, and Jackson. They don't really have the room to get in like Fife, Jordan, and Billings. So I could see them moving on from Fisher this week to get those in, like both because of cash and just like forward spots. I kind of get that. I think that's reasonable. I'll play around with trades in a second live with you, and I'm sure that like moving on Fisher will make sense. Have I got who's traded in, who's traded out? Most traded out in my team: Gibkiss, Fisher, Martin, Reed, Clark. Yeah, kind of as predicted. Not in my team: Ambrosio, Billings, Berry, Dean, Dempsey. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, like I think Billings, Berry, and Dempsey are the three biggest priorities. Dean's and Ambrosio's coming in because of like defender spots, which is why I opened up Yo. I'm not sure they're necessarily the best options this week. They may, after another week of data, be good. All right, then yeah, Jordan happy with like if he does 85s, we'll be chilling. But he's got yeah, once again like this fixture for Swans is nasty. Essendon, Richmond, West Coast in the next three. So in the lead up to their bye. So yeah, hopefully make some money and then flip him over to someone like Flanders coming off his bye would be the dream. Yeah, Sexton good, Wilson good, Reed good, and Cadman good. So, biggest problems for me are as follows. I don't have Berry. I don't have Dempsey. I don't have Billings. I still wish I had LDU. They're probably my biggest problems. Uh, in terms of like trade-ins or biggest trade-in priorities. In my actual side itself, like Gibcus, Reed, and Clark are the issues. And then you've got like definitely concern over Martin and Fisher in particular. So what do I do? What trades do I do? Well, firstly, the whole idea of Yo, we're going to show into play is like, great, I don't have to get in another rookie in defense anymore. I can put Yo back there. And in one trade, I can get Billings, which wasn't really the plan, but it, worked out well with going Wines to Yo and all that type of stuff. I could get Billings. If I click optimize, it's going to do weird stuff, isn't it? Oh, well, let's just click optimize, see what happens. Team has been optimized. Yeah. All right. This is fine enough. So yeah, this is just the one trade. This is Gibkiss to Billings, and then chill with lots of trades. And if you can conserve trades now, that's great. If you need to use a boost this week, that is totally fine too. Remember, like maximizing that cash gen and stuff, like that's the important thing. Sideways trading, bad though. Don't use trades and boost for that. Use it to actually set yourself up to make more money. So yeah, the problem with doing this though is like just doing this trade is I still want Berry, probably, and I still want Dempsey. Berry I do need to think about because like if he goes 50-50, which is likely, how good is that? Although like, yeah, Dog should be easy enough to score on. Suns haven't been on the road yet though. It's at Mars. Okay, so yeah, so that's one trade, and I could definitely do that and sit on 39, which gives me an extra trade or two up my sleeve compared to others. I think the other option here though is like I do move on something like a Fisher or a Martin, and if I move on like a Fisher, obviously I could get something like a Berry now to start making money. I could even trade Clark now to get like Dempsey through if I do a boost. I'd need to move another player into my midfield, so there we go. I could do something like that. Just to really maximize cash gen. Now, the problem with this is I'm not really worried about floating 200k. That's whatever, because if I do need to get Massimo in next week, now I've got money to do that. If I need to get like a Bonner in next week, I've got money to do that. So I think there's like lots of good reasons to hold money and be comfortable with it. But the problem is if Fisher does end up being good and end up looking like a keeper, I'm probably going to have to use money to get him back in next week, which is weird. The other thing that happens is I have to start fielding like really weird rookies. So like I'm gonna have to play one of Cadman, Berry, or Dempsey, and like these forward types I don't love having to field. The good thing is best 18 next 2 weeks. So it's not like I'm forced into trading them. The other problem I have is Berry, Cadman, and Sexton all share the same buy next week, so I'm gonna be one down on field for that. Not the end of the world, but it hurts a little bit. It takes some expected points off. So, yeah, like, do I boost just to get in 2 rookies this week? It leaves me then the flexibility next week to move Martin around, to get Massimo in for like a Reed, to move off, like, say, Bont has a poor score, he's going to lose a bunch of money. It could move off that. I probably do this, just to max money. Is it Fisher over Martin? It's probably Fisher over Martin. Well, that's to weigh up. It's then weird that I've got 5 in my midfield at the moment. I could put Jordan in there instead, or like, I'm running Harley Reid on field as well. It's probably something like that where I don't know. Gonna have to look at this now. As to how I set this up. All right, so quickly then some quick setup tips. If you do have all 7 in the bench, you are using these blue dots to loophole the rookies that you are not sure about. So I could loophole, for example, St Kilda is playing on the Thursday night, the first game. So I could loophole Wilson. And if he goes really well, I might like move on Carroll for a Roberts or something like that and take Wilson's score. So you can loophole like that using these players, which is great. It might be like Reed that I use as the last game of the round, something like that. So yeah, that's important. Just like use those loopholes. They can obviously be captain as well, so you don't have to stuff around with like a Livingston if you don't want to, or whoever you've got. And vice captain, captain. Only other thing to cover. All right. So Dacos against the Saints. I mean, Saints give up points to halfbacks traditionally, which is why Dacos has scored decently on them in the past. But like their midfield doesn't give up as many points. But I think that's definitely an option for me. We have GWS going up against West Coast. So you can look at something like a Tom Green as a captain. I think that's very viable. In which case, like maybe something like a Bont against Gold Coast is an option. But Gold Coast has been better. And their midfield's been very good as well. So is this actually like the great option? Bont's last three against them, 124, 130, 133. So he's in the mix. Butters plays Richmond, and we've seen them give up some big scores to mids as well. So I think he's also in the mix. He went 158 on them and 104 last year. And I think midfield's probably gotten worse since then. So, I'm looking at any of those options. Steele against Pies, no. The Rucks, I would be off for the kind of reasons listed. You could look at like a Heaney or something like that for a high variance option, but I don't think so. I'm probably looking at some combo of Dacos, Bont, Butters, and Green this week. I'll do a little bit more research as to whether I want to do like VC instead like this. We know Dacos has got a good ceiling as well, so they need to get a win at some point. He's been putting at 130s in losses. All right, so I feel like this has been quite unstructured and all over the place, and I think it's because I've recorded an hour and it's now midnight. We've done another half hour going through the team, so I apologize. We'll get a little bit sharper at this next week, but it gives you some idea about at least like the trades and the players I'm prioritizing and moving away from. I think what I found most difficult just looking at other people's teams is really hard for me to give blanket advice this week because they're in very different spots and they've made some structured decisions or cash and bank decisions that actually make this stuff very difficult. So if you do have questions about specific players or trades, you can hit me up in the below. I'll try and get to all of them if I can. I think the last couple of years got like 100 comments on these types of videos asking for trade. So it can be a bit of a slog, but I will try and get to them. Otherwise, if you've got suggestions for my team and what you do, should I just be doing Gibkiss to Billings, or should I be chopping up Fisher to get in these Berry and Dempsey types, or should I be doing something different altogether? Please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.